Jordan Jefferson. You're watching a FanvVew podcast.
Y'all already know what it is. Another episode, FanvVew Podcast. I'm that boy Fred.
G-Sportz back at it.
Coach Hurricane here back at it again and again.
Ain't no more games.
That's enough again.
We got a special guest in the building, man. Former Destrehan standout,
Yes.
LSU standout quarterback, Jordan Jefferson in the building, man. Appreciate you coming on the podcast, bro. Been trying to get you on for a while now. We always like to start our podcast off, man, talking about your journey, bro. Let's go back before you even entered Destrehan High School and started your legacy. What got you into the game of football? What got you so passionate about it? And being in a house with two other siblings, man, that was looking up to you.
I mean, just having a passion for the game, always being a fan of sports. I grew up Donovan McNabb, Peyton Manning, Steve McNair, Steve Young type of fan. So, I just became a fan of the sport very young, to the point to where, I asked my parents to get me involved in the recreational parks. I grew up in the early 90s to where going outside was a thing. Going in the front yard, throwing the ball up, playing basketball, just being in
the
a
street.
suburban neighborhood, playing with the kids and just really being competitive. So just having that love and passion for the game very young. Pops, get me involved. I want to play. And then when I signed up, I played for St. Rose Elementary. I was young. We ended up moving to St. Rose. Obviously, my dad saw the bigger picture of getting us involved or around a good school system. Obviously, Destrehan was pretty prestigious at that time.
Yep.
You had,
St. Charles.
you had Ed Reed coming through at that time. You had, just a plethora of athletes at that time.
Fred Smith.
Fred Smith. I was very young watching those guys play. So, just having that passion and love for the game, got involved and shit. The first thing that I did was quarterback position. I was able to throw 9 routes. I was able to throw slants at a very young age, and really just stuck to the position all the way throughout.
It's like that. That's the thing when you're a kid. Like anybody who they can play quarterback. If you could throw a 9 route as a kid, we don't think about the position as adults. We like, man, if you could throw an out route, if you could throw a slant, if you could throw this. But when you were a kid, it's like everybody want the kid to play quarterback who could throw the 9 route, because that's what everybody route was. Like if you was the fastest kid on the block, like what you do? Man, I run a 9 route. You're not thinking about running an out because you playing in the street. It's not about routes. It's about, boy, I'm about to mess over you. I'm that kind of kid.
But even when you was in high school, bro, when did it click in your head and you was able to say to yourself and your parents and be like, man, I could probably go play big time football playing quarterback?
Well, my dad was a basketball guy. He ended up going to college at Nebraska for basketball.
Never knew that.
Played like point guard, shooting guard type. He was nice in basketball. So young, I was basketball, AAU. Yes, in Louisiana, you only have certain seasons to where you can cater to football versus other states like Texas to where they have year-round football. So whenever I would play football and dominate that season, I would transition over to basketball season to where I could get involved with AAU. I can get involved with franchise. I can get involved in travel. So I was playing young. I was playing the majority of my months more basketball than it was football, just because of how the structure of Louisiana sports are at that time. So my dad was a basketball guy, so he got us involved with basketball too. And I traveled, went to New York, Tennessee, Orlando, and competed in the big tournaments. Back in the day, they used to have the big basketball tournaments at the Hilario Center. And at the Hilario Center, man, we had some big time ballers, even in Louisiana, but just a lot of people to come in those tournaments and compete. So, my dad was into basketball so young. I mean, having your first son involved in sports was definitely some form of influence, pushing, getting me involved, taking me to the gym very young and seeing him compete because, he had me in his early 20s. So I was able to see him compete at a very young age and go to the gym and toss the ball up and do things like that. So just always being around sports and getting that form of influence got me involved to the point to where I'm competing. At 6, 7, and 8, 9 and 10, 11 and 12, I'm competing. So I feel like football was my thing, but I definitely in the beginning was more inclined to basketball just because of the amount of time I was spending
A
in
lot of
playing.
kids.
Playing the sport.
Absolutely.
So, what grade was it when you said to yourself, "I can go play Power Five football at quarterback"?
Well, let's see. Throughout middle school, played AAU, and then obviously once you get to high school, you start having more serious conversations. If you're, at that time, eighth graders like OJ Mayo were getting offered to play college basketball, and then I'm looking at myself. I'm like, okay, well, I wasn't 6'5" at that time. I
Right.
was still reaching my maturity peak, so
Yeah.
I'm, you know, 5'7", and I want to go to Duke and I want to go to North Carolina for basketball, and I had to come to the realization, well,
You realize
if
you
this
should
is
do
what
it.
I'm going to do, I need to have a God gifted talent by doing so. Yes, I played against guys like DeMarcus DeRozan and saw him at 13 years old, AAU basketball, played against Brandon Jennings and saw these guys that had God gifts in basketball, and comparing myself, you have to be realistic. I always had coaches that tell me, know thyself. So I had to know my thyself going into high school. Yes, I played, basketball my freshman year, but I had to be real with myself. Okay, if basketball teams are only taking 3 or 4 scholarships a year versus football that's
25.
taking 25, I
Yeah.
have a better chance in Louisiana to go for football than I did basketball. So I started to become more serious with football. I stopped playing AAU basketball. I dedicated myself more to perfecting my craft as a football player to give me a better opportunity to go to the next level. And then at that time, I'm still going through the DVD, converting over to the tape,
Just
converting
TV,
over to
right.
the DVD era. So you really had to be strategic with your time. You had to be strategic with the film that you putting out. So I had to focus more on quarterback play than it was trying to be a shoot guard for Duke or North Carolina.
It'd been nice to be at Duke or North Carolina.
Absolutely. But for my frame being, and at that time, I caught a growth spurt at 16. So I went from like 5'8" to like 6'2" over a summertime, and 6'2", that's a point guard.
Yeah.
That can hoop like Kyrie Irving.
Right.
And I didn't necessarily have that skill set. So I would say a lot of kids in Louisiana, sometimes you have to be real, and understand what demographic you in regards of the specialty. The specialty in New Orleans is football. Louisiana is football. If I was in New York, that might be a little different. My scale would be different. Jersey, or even in the West Coast in Cali, might have different options, but Louisiana, football. So for me, I just sat down with my parents, came up with a plan in regards of what I wanted to do, how I wanted to look, what do I want my life to look like. Manifested it then, freshman, sophomore year, and just became serious.
I do want to talk about your time coming out of high school, um, choosing LSU
Hmm.
to go play college football. I mean, at that time there was a lot of LSU had some expectations at the quarterback position, particularly black quarterbacks that they were recruiting. Obviously, you had Rohan Dave who came through there. You had
Marcus
Jamarcus
Randall.
Russell. You had Ryan Perlew who had committed there, who was a big time recruit. Then
Marcus Randall.
Marcus Randall, and then you coming.
Hmm.
Talk about your time at LSU being that kind of crew. Talk about the expectations during that time of you trying to live up to the bill of being the next guy at that program at that time.
Well, for myself, coming out of Destrehan, it obviously was a challenge for me to be on the notoriety level to get to LSU due to injuries that I suffered my junior year. I had a broken wrist, a scaphoid fracture. So a lot of my high school experience really predicated on 1 year to become a Division I football, which was my senior year of football. So I used to go to camps throughout that summertime with cast on my hand and just compete versus, I was in the years of E.J. Manuel,
Yeah.
Florida State.
Nick
Florida State.
Griffin,
Mhm.
Andrew Luck.
Yeah.
You had a guy named Star Jackson that ended up committing to Alabama. I have a story about that. Um, there was another quarterback that had went to Oregon. I forgot his name. But it was just a lot of top guys in that were in different demographics, even in some in Louisiana that were like ranked over me because of my absence of not playing due to injury. So my senior year was very critical, bro. I had to really like lock down, focus on my craft, and really dig into it. Go to the camps and really perform. And going to LSU, it kind of wasn't like a first instant opportunity for me. It's something that came through how the system goes. So I basically went to the camp throughout the summertime, performed with one of my teammates, Timothy Moulton. He ended up committing, going to LSU at the time. Went to the camp together. He got the offer that day. Me and him, we killed the camp. I didn't necessarily get the offer that day. Felt like I did, but in due time, you still have to go out and compete. Because, like
Right.
I said, I only had
Yeah.
a few games that I played junior, like
You
varsity.
varsity,
It was
right.
my junior year. I was, leading the state, leading in touchdowns and everything, but I only played 4 games and then
Right.
played one game, one playoff game. So 5 games going into my senior year. I'm looking at all these guys highly ranked than me, better than me, so they say. So going into my senior year, I just had a lot to prove. Performed very well, and then I'm starting to get recruited by different schools. We have a
Right.
lot of talent at our school. People are coming to the spring game, and obviously it's about week 8 going into the high school season, and I'm going on official visits. So I was getting recruited by Alabama at the time. So I'm there on my OV having a good time, and obviously on the Alabama side while they're about to play LSU. The LSU staff sees me on the sideline, and their hearts kind of drop a little bit because obviously I'm an in-state kid
Right.
that's on the verge of crossing to a different state. So at that time, it was myself and a kid named Star Jackson. Star Jackson was ranked number 7 in the country. I was ranked number 8. So that weekend was great. LSU ends up beating Alabama. That was the year they went to the national championship. They ended up beating Alabama. Star Jackson commits to Alabama that weekend, which it was either going to be LSU or Alabama for me. I was getting recruited by Nick Saban and I forgot the running back's coach name, but
Burns. So it's
Coach Burns. And literally the next weekend, LSU offered me because of the notion of them seeing me on the sideline with an Alabama credential on. So my offer came at that time. I instantly committed because at that time, I wasn't necessarily receiving 20, 30 different offers
right.
That wasn't your
because I was coming through the DVD era and recruiting was a little bit different at that time versus having a huddle link to be able to send to coaches. And also at that time, you had to rely on the recruiting services like Rivals
Yep.
and what was the
24/7.
Nah, at that time it was Scout.com.
Right.
To
Right.
give
right.
you a proper article in order for you to even be recognized on that level. So I wasn't necessarily getting that notoriety. So for me, committed to LSU that day after my OV in Alabama, and instantly saw an opportunity for me to go in and have a good career. Obviously, in that process, they kind of explain to you their importance of how they feel about you. You can come in, you can play, and XYZ, but obviously you got to go there and prove yourself. So coming out of Destrehan and first getting to the LSU platform, there was a lot I had to learn. Obviously, coming out of the Louisiana school system, we don't necessarily have a, let's say, person that's training quarterbacks and giving them that form of language and knowledge to understand how to walk up to a line and know the difference between under, over, and Okie. I didn't know that when I first got to LSU, but now that we're in a pro style offense, I have to be able to understand how to play those forms of quarterback.
Mhm.
So it took me some time to learn and catch up that form of IQ when you get to college and understand that quarterback play. But it obviously comes with a lot of pressure. It comes with a lot of
Yeah,
expectation
Definitely.
because due to a 8-win, 9-win season, that's unacceptable in the SEC. It's 10 wins or plus, or it needs to be a championship,
Yep.
because that's ultimately going to a school like LSU. That's what you're competing towards.
So you played like in an era where pro style was kind of fading out. Did it kind of make you jealous? Like not of your brother, but seeing like the opportunities that his skill set was able to be afforded because of the way the football started changing and the game was more spread, because at your time, like, 'cause like they'll tell you, like, I'm a big LSU fan and all this stuff. So Les Miles just really just, hey, Jordan, run option left, run option right. We gonna load the box like this. I'm not gonna say, but we always had a high wide receiver getting drafted year. And so, like you just said, the tutelage at the quarterback position wasn't there in Louisiana. It'll be different if you was in California because that's what quote unquote they're known for. But to see the way that it evolved from you going into college to when your brother left out of college, and ultimately all three of y'all had the same head coach at one point in y'all career. Talk about that aspect of it.
Yeah, definitely a different style. The game was changing completely in
Yeah.
regards to how big the DNs were. They were getting smaller. How big the O linemen were. They were getting smaller. And I mean that form of pro style offense definitely worked in that era. But when it comes to a point in time and you coming across a team that can put up points, you have to have a different style of play. I came out of a kind of spread offense in Destrehan, so it definitely took some adjustments for me to adjust to that style of play. But it definitely had its efficiencies for certain eras of the SEC. But when you going against, Ryan Mallett at Arkansas, and they
Mhm.
had that whole lineage of receivers. You have to put up some points.
Right.
You
Yeah.
going
Right.
against
Yeah.
Cam Newton at quarterback in his year at Alabama. You're gonna have to put up points, and
Mhm.
even Tim Tebow and that whole
Florida.
Florida aspect. Those guys had a spread type of offense that were putting up points.
Yeah.
So you had to be able to keep up with the SEC in general, to be able to get those 10 wins. So it worked at the time, but you had to adjust due
Right.
to even the style of recruiting, the pool of talent. You have to adjust to, and good coaches are able to adjust to that. And throughout the years, you can just see a conversion of adjustments that had to be made in order for them to keep up with the pool talent of recruits in regards to them getting a lot smaller, but also a lot faster, and also being able to keep up and score points.
I kind of we had Tasman Mitchell, one of LSU legends, on the podcast earlier, and we was talking about life after the sport that you're playing, right? When you was coming out of high school, bro, I remember you winning a state championship and then going to LSU. I thought for sure you was going to be a first, second, third round pick, but that didn't happen for your career. And then, you ended up in the coaching game, coaching at Colorado State, Houston. Then you went to Navarro Junior College for a little while. Um, Talk about transitioning from an athlete to the coaching space. Now you're working with WME, who is one of the top agencies in all the sports, and working on the marketing side and the NIL space.
The transition of athlete is definitely difficult because I mean, there's guys that have always dedicated their time to perfecting their craft.
Right.
I didn't necessarily perfect anything but being a football player. So having that dream, all of those years throughout my life, from being a child and going through those different eras of being one of the best, and then coming to the point to where that percentage gets a lot smaller and smaller in the talent pool, or opportunities to play at that next level get a lot smaller, and reality hits. And at some point in time, for all athletes, they definitely have to transition to the next at some point. Even for Michael Jordan or LeBron James.
Right.
That time comes early or later, but at some point in time,
It
you have to
comes.
get involved with other avenues. And for myself, I necessarily didn't have the plan to get into the lanes that I did. It was just me believing in myself and just trusting what the Lord had in front of me. So
Right.
I was able to walk through those doors. And obviously for myself, it wasn't easy for me to get the opportunities that I've, gotten in my life. It just took for me to be adaptable. It
Mhm.
took for me to be an open book, to put myself in a situation to where I can gain more knowledge and information about how to survive in some of those spaces. So I had to go to grad school. I had to, take less than what I felt like I deserved in order
Mhm.
for me to feel a real benefit at the end of my day. So in my 20s, it was a lot of me networking, politicking,
Mhm.
experimenting on certain platforms to put me in position to end up winning, and also seeing the adversity, seeing the failures,
Mhm.
getting into the realities of working with people
Mhm.
and asking for an opportunity and they might not have it. So
Right.
a door slams in your face and then you have to come up with a strategy in order to still accomplish what you need to accomplish for the year or for the next 5 years. So, for me, when I stopped playing ball, the first thing that I wanted to do was become a coach. That was the first form of experience that I can get that can keep me connected to the game. I
Yep.
loved football. I was in my young 20s, 24, 25 maybe is when I stopped playing, when I was just traveling all over, getting 1 year opportunities to play. It just came at a point to me to where I was like, man, I need to stop living out of suitcase. I need
Right.
to become more
Right.
real with myself. I
Right.
need to,
Right.
take
Right.
my opportunities and my knowledge to the next level and not only focus on myself getting that. Maybe I can share this with a young man that can still
Inspiring
have
him.
the same opportunity that I had, but can also still go further than what I did. So
Right.
um stopped playing ball and I went to LSU, and I was basically begging for a coaching opportunity, which I wasn't able to get at the time.
Mhm.
My middle brother was
Ricky.
Ricky
Mhm.
was on his, I believe, sophomore year
Mhm.
at that time. So there was no connection or opportunity for me to become a GA at that school. And at that time, I couldn't believe it. I'm
Damn.
like, wow, I,
I
played
went to
a
school.
lot of years here. I'm
What school?
LSU alumni. I, threw a lot of touchdowns. I had great opportunities, good success. Obviously, had adversities as well, but you always have that notion that you can go back home and receive the open embracement
Embracement.
of what you're trying to do moving forward. So for me, that opportunity wasn't there. The door was slammed in my face. So as soon as I was done playing ball, I experienced adversity. I was, so it was for me, it was an experience of what have you done for me lately.
Right.
So in that case, I had to become strategic on how I'm going to spend the rest of my life, because now I can't necessarily go to a place of people that knew me, that been
Me.
around me, and give me an opportunity. So in the conclusion, all of my opportunities came from people that didn't know me,
Wow.
that was a stranger to me. They knew of me, but they didn't know
Hmm.
as much about me as they did. So I had to become strategic. I took up on an opportunity to coach at Destrehan, reached out to Coach Robichaux, gave me
Mhm.
the chance to go to Destrehan. And this way you come into the cases of just believing in God. I was able to work with Justin, my brother, for 2 years.
Mhm.
This was his first year converting over to being a wide receiver after following the path of wanting to be a quarterback like myself. Sat down with him and had a real conversation. Hey man, do you want to have longevity with your career? You see what's going on with me being a African American quarterback.
Right.
You
Right.
may need to change your position to give yourself longevity. So he played, his first years of JV and going through that whole experience as a receiver. And then my first year getting with him at Destrehan was his first year of being on varsity football. So he was able to gain knowledge and experience of me being back home in Destrehan, going to practice with him. I'm working with the quarterbacks, coaching him up at practice, but also being able to come home to St. Rose and do more work right in that yard that we had next
Right.
door. So in
Right.
essence, it was great for me not to go to LSU.
Right.
because I was able to sit next to him
It worked.
every day for 2 years, his junior and senior year, and help him throughout his course of transitioning and being a top receiver in the game. And then obviously when he left Destrehan, I ended up getting my first opportunity to coach and be a GA by the guy named Brian Johnson. Brian Johnson came to Destrehan, watched the playoff game. He was obviously recruiting guys like Kurt Merritt, which was one of the big time recruits at the time. And like guys like Kurt Merritt, guys like Justin, guys like Michael Young, those guys were getting highly recruited, which I think at that time maybe Mike Young was the highest recruit, which he ended up going to Notre Dame, but he was getting recruited. They came to watch some guys play. We ended up playing what was that? Either Parkview Baptist
Out of Baton Rouge.
out of Baton Rouge.
Yeah,
They had
that's
a
Parkview.
big time quarterback there, and I believe that was Terrence Marshall, a receiver. So
No,
they
no, Parkway.
Parkway.
Parkway is
Freeport.
Freeport.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
had
yeah,
a
yeah.
quarterback and a receiver.
Justin Rogers.
Justin
Rogers.
Rogers.
Okay.
Rogers.
We played them, and I mean, there was so many coaches there to watch those kids play. So I would network with Coach Johnson. He was at Mississippi State at the time. Maybe like a month or two later, he got the job at University of Houston, and then he ended up calling me, "Hey man, I got an opportunity for you to kind of learn from me. I can mentor you and coach you up and kind of show you how I was able to get some of these opportunities." Bam, that was my first opportunity to now be a college coach after coaching high school for 2 years. So went out to Houston, enrolled into grad school, started coaching with the guys for the summertime. Then the basically what you want to call a general manager kind of have a conversation with me. Hey man, we can't necessarily allow you to coach here too much longer. And I'm like, wow, I done moved into an apartment. I done got it, applied to grad school.
You got settled.
The staff that introduced me
Got settled.
to the team and been working and acclimated with the guys. And I think that came to the point of my name was so well known to where it kind of scared people and threatened people. So now I'm gaining a second experience of being out of football, of for one, being able to go back, home and work with people that I thought would give me an opportunity based off of the things that I had going on and me expressing what I want to do. Didn't happen. Now me getting an opportunity from somebody that sees value in what I'm doing at Destrehan for the past 2 years, that's also similar to me, played quarterback at Utah. Ended up getting an opportunity to climb the ladder board, made it to SEC. Now he's getting an opportunity, want to share that former leadership and give me a chance, and that being pulled from under me too. So I'm having an experience of two different sides of it. So at that point I had to realize, okay, now I have to really be strategic. My destiny is being controlled by men that's standing in front of me. How do I come out of this situation? So, it got to the point to where I don't know if anybody knew this, but I went to a Division II school in Joplin, Missouri. Joplin, Missouri, no, Kirksville, Missouri. My bad. Kirksville, Missouri probably has like 10,000 students in it. And at that time, um, I was, this website called Football Scoop. Following Football Scoop and just
with the coaches, they
do
selling
diligently reading it, consuming it. Every opportunity that they had, I'll send my resume. Boom, email them, call them, text them, or however I could. So that one opportunity came up. Joplin, Missouri, went out there, did like some fall camp, did fall camp, and then at that over the summertime, I didn't necessarily have my letter of acceptance to get into grad school. So at that time, I received it. And I had a good conversation with the coach. Hey, man, I can't necessarily continue to coach here. I'm going to go ahead and take my chances on getting my master's degree without football, and then with the intent to get back into it at some point in time. So I went to Houston, and at that time, I was just a regular student. And obviously had to get a job, right, to support what I was doing. So I ended up...
what kind of job you end up getting?
My first one I ended up getting was selling cars at Chevrolet.
Come on, man.
At a dealership. When I was working at
Automobiles, welcome to the business.
Absolutely. When I worked at Destrehan in high school, the one thing that I was able to do was network with some good people on the alumni side, former players that was able to make phone calls for me. So one of my guys made a phone call at Peak BMW, and when I was at BMW, I was actually selling cars there. Now I would be selling 8 to 10 BMWs, a week, a month. I mean, I'm sorry, 8 to 10 a month. So, but I also go coach at Destrehan as well.
So you just
So
running
I
back.
had the experience of working in that corporate form, being an independent contractor,
Yep.
I
Yeah.
should say, being
Yep.
able to know how to manage my own form of financial gain.
Hmm.
Obviously, working off a commission isn't for everybody,
Right.
I'm
but
aware. I do it.
I was able to thrive in that space, but I still had that football notion. So by me having that experience of working at BMW for 2 years, I was able to get that job in Houston, worked there for a couple of months. Hurricane hit. Remember that big hurricane in Houston?
Houston.
Flooded everything in Houston. And at that time had to be strategic. Everything kind of revamped itself. I ended up having to quit that job because everything was flooded in
Right.
that area.
Right.
You had to leave grad school at the same time too.
No, I was still in Houston. It was gonna, how the hurricane season is in the South. It'll take at least a month or a couple of weeks for things to
Right.
either,
Hmm.
Get back to normal.
get back to normal or fall back suit. So when it fell back suit, got into the program, started classes. I started working at this company called Allied Horizontal, which is more like engineer work, and I was doing like office work, simple
Right.
work,
Right.
easy, $20 an hour. I got the job through my grad school program.
Hmm.
Just to keep me situated, acclimated to learn, but also had the flexibility to go and sit into a 3-hour grad school class. So I worked there for about a couple of months, and then I got a better opportunity being an instructional designer at Olin Horizontal, which is a chemical company in Freeport, Texas.
Okay.
So, I was doing a plethora of different things outside of football, even though I still had
You said
the
that
passion
passion
and
in
connection for it.
Damn.
So
That's
did being a big brother to two people who were still currently in the game kind of like close that like depression kind of like window like with like G had asked like that dark space of like what do you do after sport because like I'm the oldest brother of my group so I understand what you went through and having two other right behind you at going to the same school that you went through like you could always be like all right yeah because you could still get on the phone call and like hey you need to do boom 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 still kind of scratch the itch for you a little bit.
Most definitely. Just being a fan of the sport, just watching, and obviously having a passion for it. Because now I'm, watching family go out there and compete, and I ended up getting back into football in my last year of my grad school program. I got an opportunity from Coach Brian Applewhite at Colorado State
Hmm.
that gave me the chance to um, finish my last semester of my program,
hmm
go to Colorado State and enroll myself into another grad school program and do spring football at that time. So now I'm transitioning myself to be a GA at Colorado State. So my brother Ricky is going into like his, rookie year in the NFL. My brother Justin is now going to like his sophomore, maybe, yeah, like sophomore year at LSU. So me still being in that coaching football form, I was still talking to them weekly in regards to things that I was seeing from afar that they needed to work on, that they needed to do. For an example, everybody called Justin Jets. We kind of started that alter ego type of deal in high school. Hey, man, you got guys like, if you want to be great, you got guys like Odell Beckham, LeBron James, Kobe Bryant, you know, call himself OBJ. Call himself King James,
King
call
James.
himself Black Mamba. So, starting those campaigns and having those conversations to get him to think, to visualize himself, to manifestate himself in that form. Those conversations still were going on in that time. So it was able to give me a void, to fill that void or that gap that I was missing in that transition, with the intent for me to still, get back on track with coaching. So when I was, did my first year at Colorado State, we ended up going 3-9. The staff ended up getting fired, and then obviously got my first, and then COVID happened after that. Justin and LSU obviously won a state championship. So that whole year when I was at Colorado State, I'm on the phone with him every week, just giving him pointers, tools, tips, just from afar. Even if
Right.
it's small things like, man, when you catch a big post versus Georgia, and it's a big first down, give the people what they want. You're an entertainer. Most guys catch the ball, give it to the referee, but in some cases now you see guys get up, show a little passion, get the crowd involved, get
Right.
everybody amped up, which that's what you want.
Yeah, what you want.
You have to cater yourself to be a guy that can fill the seats.
Right.
So we were doing and having some of those conversations and campaigns when they were in college, and I was still transitioning my life to get on the coaching side.
Uh, man, I remember just in high school, we had a Meek Robinson who played for the Raiders on the podcast, and he talked about his battles with Jets all through high school. And I remember him saying, going into the game, the whole coaching staff was saying we need to focus on Michael Young.
Hmm.
And Amik said, that's not the one we need to be worried about. We need to be worried about Jefferson. And I asked him, I said, what was it about just that you knew that he was a guy? He said, man, it was the wiggle. It was the way he ran routes. It was his passion for the game. And I thought, I remember covering him in high school, and I thought he was really underappreciated. If I'm not mistaken, he only had like 2 or 3 scholarship offers his senior.
Hmm.
And I remember covering him at the camp at LSU. Ty Harris was defending him in the indoor, and he stuck in with a double post. Ty Harris runs into the wall.
Hmm.
It actually was a video that went viral that I posted. But talk about that transition for him, man. Being underappreciated, not getting recruited like he should have been, and beating and silencing all the naysayers, man. Going into LSU. I mean, they gave him number 39 his freshman year. Nobody expected Justin Jefferson to be who he is today, man.
I went 39.
Right, right. But
That'd be funny.
but when you listen to him in interviews and talk, he always goes back to how you believed in him and how you instilled confidence in him, man. Take me through that.
Everything is based off of information. When you have the right information, you can obviously take a small object and turn it into an empire. So for me, that was my main objective getting with him. He obviously had the athleticism due to good genetics and just coming from a family of competition. I've always seen him perform at a high level. If it's little league, middle school ball, he was the guy taking the last shot. He was the guy that was, needing to score the last touchdown. So he had that effect in him. He just needed time for his body to mature, and he needed the actual tools in his toolbox in order for him to be able to cross state lines and dominate, Texas, Florida, or any state that he competes with. So, my main objective was to get with him and give him that information and work and train as much as possible, like what I saw other guys doing. So what I saw Jarvis and Odell doing, I implemented with my brother. What I saw other guys doing, my receivers and how I liked them. So in essence, I was training him to be ready to adjust with a D1 quarterback, early.
Right.
I mean, even for myself, if you rewind a little bit, if I'm, coming home during spring and Ricky's in high school and Justin's in middle school and Ricky comes to me and say he wants to get some work, well, all 3 of us working. So he had the opportunity to catch and run routes and do things with a Division I quarterback in middle school and high school. So the saying that I used to always tell him, if you can catch a ball from me, you can catch a ball from anybody.
Right.
And I'm not necessarily, slacking off or, taking things off because he's my brother. I'm pushing him to the limit, to the extreme. So I was able to see what he could do early. Obviously, his recruiting process scaled a little bit left because of his GPA of not passing elective his freshman year, which obviously he had thousands of conversations about, but you can lead a man to the water. You can't necessarily make him drink.
Right.
So he had to feel that for himself. He had to feel the opportunity of maybe not having the career that he wanted. He was on the verge of going to JUCO. But obviously we had conversations with LSU that got to the point to where that opportunity was still available as long as he did what he needed to do academically. So by him not signing on signing day, which that depleted him,
I already
he was
know.
able to, fill that moment that we all feel as athletes are being
Yep.
stripped from the game. So that kind of put a chip on his shoulder. Not being recruited due to his academics, chip on his shoulder. Obviously, Mike was highly recruited because he had the GPA, he
Mike
had
went
the
to Notre Dame.
academics.
Yep.
Yeah, he went to Notre Dame. He had the tools and the tangibles to play at that level. So obviously, a lot of people are going to cater more to that than somebody that needs academic improvement. So that's just a testament to young players to just have your academics in order. So
Because he didn't qualify to the summer, right?
didn't qualify to the summertime. We had to send him to summer school. Ended up getting the grade that he needed to. Which that's a whole story because we went back and forth with the school, the NCAA, to make sure all of the proper information was input.
And you was orchestrating all this.
In the middle of it, obviously coordinating with my parents.
Right.
I'm kind of doing some of it while I'm present, but I'm also from afar because I'm still trying to get acclimated in my space as well. So he ended up getting that opportunity and just taking it to the next level. Dropped him off about a week or two before they started fall camp. That's why he had to, receive such a low number. All of those guys picked their number throughout the summertime. He wasn't able to do summer conditioning or the summer program, so showed up late, got the number he got. But the interesting part here was he was the only freshman receiver that traveled.
Now, I got a question for you about your brother. Are you surprised at all about the season he just recently had?
No, not necessarily. We were in Turks and Caicos in February, beginning of that season, and we sat on the patio, and he told me, "Hey, man, look, I'm going for 2,000 yards. Minimum, I'm gonna get surpass the amount that I've gotten." So in that moment, that's manifestation. I believed him the day he said it.
Wow.
And then at that point, I expressed a form of avenue and lane that I was going to take in the agent space, and sure enough, that manifestation just led to walking down the path that we on now. So I believed him the day he told me in Turks and Caicos.
And that's not easy to do, bro, because
No,
at the
that's not.
receiver position, you have to depend on so many people. The quarterback, make sure the O-line block. You got to make sure the OC gonna call plays to design and get you open. It's so much coming to play when you playing receiver. I think receiver depend on the most out of every position on the
It's a
field.
very dependent position.
You know what I mean? Like
position.
injuries. Like, man, so much that come into play.
Absolutely. For him, just getting drafted to Minnesota, coming off of the year that Stephon Diggs had, you can automatically see that he was going to have a minimum of 1,000 his first year.
Right.
Based off of the targets and the attempts and catches that Diggs had, they obviously drafted him first round to fill in
that
what
role.
he just did. So
Yeah, traded
his
Buffalo.
first year, we already said, well, that's 1,000 yards. Okay, well, we'll get that. Second year, it's always the notion for you to outdo what you did the year before. So every year, if you watch, he's always outdid what he did the year before. So he told me 2,000 in Turks. He got 1,800. Now that he got 1,800, let's see what he gets this year.
Man,
I end up getting the 2,000.
Listen,
Offensive player of the year. And Destrehan is the only school, I think they say, in the country that have a defensive player of the year and an offensive player of the year from the same high school.
Absolutely. It's a lot of talent in Destrehan.
It's crazy, dog.
that's crazy.
It's crazy.
Not easy to do. And obviously, it's just, the statistics are kind of crazy, but there's been a lot of athletes that come through Destrehan that didn't make it to that type of accolade. So
Right.
That's pretty special.
Right.
Let me ask you this, Jordan. Why do you feel like your brother still hasn't get the respect that he deserved? When he was the 19 run, and granted, he played with two other monsters, but I will always say, Justin was he's the spoon. There's the picture of cooling. But without nothing to stir it, none of this gonna work.
Right.
You got Jamar, who was the 50-50 phenomenon. You got Terrence Marshall, who was the athletic freak. But
And I think he was ranked the highest out of all of them.
yeah,
Coming out of high school.
coming out of high school. And when Justin wasn't talked of. You had Clyde Edwards-Helaire doing what he was doing out the backfield. You had Dad Moss, got talked about because of who his daddy was.
Right.
Nobody was consistently talking about Justin. Then you go to the league, they forget the rookie year that Justin had based off of
What
where
Jamal did.
Jamal ended up his rookie year, and
Not to
then when
mention
you
that Jamal
talk
didn't
about
go to the Super Bowl.
then when you talk about all the top wide receivers and you just start naming stuff, his name doesn't come up. But then with like when you put the numbers up, it's like better than this one, better than this one,
Mhm.
better than this one. What do you think? Like, what is there left for him to prove to get like the respect that he deserves?
I think the respect that he is deserving is starting to show now with him being the offensive player. But I think from the beginning, a lot of it is just stirred from just how the recruiting process goes. You know, he wasn't highly recruited. So based off of the expectation list from coaches, from reporters to NFL scouts, you know, if you're a five-star guy, they automatically put in that notion on you that you're going to come here, have a stellar career, and end up going to the NFL and having a even stellar career just based off being a five-star. That's just what people think about you, and not necessarily people really look at the 4 stars. I look at the 3 stars. There's a lot of 3 stars
Yes,
that went to
indeed.
LSU that ended up performing and giving guys a whole different persona about who they were versus when they first entered. And I think Justin was that guy that didn't necessarily need like that form of notoriety. He needed that chip on his shoulder. He needed people to tell him that he wasn't good enough in order for him to go back in the lab and go even harder. And you got to think about it. He always was in the shadows of myself, was in the shadows of
Yep.
Ricky going to LSU, wanting to create a name and a stigma for himself, and going to LSU kind of being, under recruited, and you know, it started to pick up for him once people started to see the real value in what he had to offer. There was a coach that was at LSU at the time by the name of Jerry Sullivan, NFL legend, coaching the NFL for about 40 something years. And that day he pulled me to the side and said, Jordan, I see something in this young man that nobody else in the country see. All we have to do is get him the tools in his toolbox and he's going to be successful. So at that point in time, you needed guys like that to still be able to give and instill that confidence in him and not necessarily push him to the side and cater more to your 5 star guys. So by him being able to perform and put up 800-900 his sophomore year and being able to look at, what the rest of the receiver room did, you kind of had to start catering to what he was doing and what he was able to provide in that space. And not a lot of guys know going into that 19 year, when you look at the depth chart of receivers and you looking for a slot receiver, who was it going to be besides Justin? If you look at the careers of all the receivers there, a lot of those guys, played, field or boundary receiver. Justin was the only one at that time that did go in the slot. So by him going in the slot gave him more value to be able to show his style of play as a receiver. He was able to do the same things OBJ did in forms of, route running or creating space or making tough catches in traffic and being able to take a hit. He was able to prove that in that space. And we always preach versatility, not being able to just do one thing. So
Right.
even in today's game, you've seen him take a couple of passes and threw it up the field. He's 3 for 3 with passing completion. So just being able to do everything. So to being able to do one thing. So a lot of the not getting credit in at the end of the day still benefited in his favor. And he was able to still get his notoriety, I believe, in the offensive player of the year now than what it was in previous conversations
Right.
with his experiences.
Just think
Right.
that he doesn't get the go back to what Coach Shin was saying. I mean, you talking about some of the receiver, a plethora of receivers that come through LSU. I mean, this is going back from Josh Reed to now. You about Clayton, you talk about Devin Henderson, Skylar Green, you talking about
Wayne
Waybo,
Bowe,
Buster
Henry Tyler.
Davis, Tyler Ruben Randall,
Brandon LaFell.
Brandon LaFell. I mean, early Doucette, OBJ, Jarvis. Now you got him and Chase, and Terrence. I mean, I don't think people really understand that Justin is probably ranked really
Yeah.
up
Yeah.
there. When you start talking about the receivers that's come through this program from, let's say, from 2000 to now, because I don't want to talk about from 99 before that because LSU wasn't what it is now. But when you start thinking about the ranking of the receivers that come out of LSU, man, I think you got to really put Justin in top
Top three.
Top three.
Top three.
Top three.
Top three, definitely.
Ain't number one on my list, but
Yeah.
obviously it's definitely a lineage
It's a
of
lineage of
receivers.
receivers.
I mean to go over 100 receptions in the SEC, that's very very difficult. Bro.
Yes.
That is not easy, and obviously a lot of things fell into place. You know, with getting Joe Burrow, with the coaching staff. So,
And Joe Burrow didn't look like Joe Burrow his first year.
exactly, and
But then they still was running the same pro style. They was trying to
But
transition.
you remember what Jimmy Chase said when he came on the podcast? Jimmy Chase said Joe Brady
Joe Brady.
played a big part into why that offense took off.
Yeah.
You know, no disrespect to
It's me.
Ismingle, but Joe Brady brought something different to that offense.
But then also too, as a coach, you could appreciate what I'm about to say. As a evaluator, you can appreciate. It's hard to say, hey, we gonna do A, B, and C when the player A, B, and C ain't in that room,
Right.
For you
right.
to do. So
you gotta have dudes.
You had to get rid of the pro style stuff that you had to say. All right,
the toss pitch.
yeah, nah.
I hated
was
that
the
damn
dumbest-
play. I
why?
hated that damn play.
Why? Just why?
I hated the
Why?
toss pitch.
Like it was a tell. All right, we go
Toss
here.
medium,
We
that's
go.
what it was.
We go motion to a near set. It.
Toss-
Why?
that's
Why?
what it was.
What was Les thinking when he decided that play?
well, you were trying to, when you look at the analytics of attempts of style of runs we were running, we were more of a power and ISO team.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're playing against teams like Florida,
Bama.
at that time they had Carlos Dunlap, Brandon Spikes, Joe Hayden, Will Hill, a lineage of players. And you lined up in that I formation with the tight end right, safety will come down in the box. Obviously you still have your fullback and your running back it's a numbers game, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it was getting to the point to where when we were handing off power, the backside DN, which was who I just said, Carlos Dunlap, who's named Alabama's.
High tower.
High tower.
Courtney Upshaw.
Courtney Upshaw. These dudes are scraping down the line, making the tackle in the backfield.
Yes.
So when you played the numbers game and you handed off the power, the backside DN was blocked unfree. He was able to go down the line and make the play in the backfield. You can't win like that.
Mm-hmm.
If power is going to be your
Bread and
number
butter.
one running attempt, right? So the rule was for the quarterback to now toss the power and block the backside so we can have full numbers front side and backside. So in a sense, it's pretty smart strategy of still running the concept and blocking every person, your one tech, your three, your linebacker, your safety, your corner, and still get a gain of 4+ yards.
Hat on the head.
Hat on the head.
Yeah, but it was like I'd rather see you toss that ball to Terrence McGee than to Alec Broussard, who just like he not about to get no. He'll get you 3 the hard way, but Terrence will get you 20.
I think what made people more frustrated is when they had Leonard that year, and they kept trying to do it on Bama, and it just was not working. It just wasn't working. You know what I'm saying? It was like, man, try something else.
I mean, when you get 2 weeks of preparation with Bama, first of all, that's a strike. Secondly,
And why it always fall like that?
because it's a numbers game. You're trying to sell tickets. You want to, they know that's going to be one of the highest viewed games in the SEC. So they want to give it that amp that, they want to amp it up a little bit.
Yeah.
Talk about that.
Get ready for the tailgates and get ready for
Talk about the game of the century.
Yeah, I mean, obviously.
Going to the game with 9-6.
Yeah, that's the game of the century.
Yep, and obviously, beginning of that year, I was dealing with some adversity that kind of had me suspended for some games. So
I remember.
I wasn't necessarily starting for Alabama at that time.
I think Jared Lee was starting.
Jared Lee was starting, and obviously we had great talent on our end, and it was basically like talent for talent.
Mm-hmm.
Going into Bama isn't easy to get a win. I mean, you're going against, Tuscaloosa, Sweet Home Alabama type of vibes, and, obviously the, number one versus number two type of energy is obviously, nothing, no joke. You know what you're getting into going into that game. Somebody going to leave the game, sad, upset, ice bags, injuries. So it's going to be a war. So, I mean, just being prepared at every level was marquee. And for me, I wasn't starting at the time, but I knew my opportunity was going to come. We did at that time have a way of being somewhat predictable.
Yeah.
You know, you
Yeah.
line up in certain formations, and you can kind of tell what what we're gonna do. I always felt like
Did you have any pushback to that when you was there?
in regards to play calling,
Yeah.
I didn't have enough power. Maybe if I had NIL money, maybe
Right. Right.
and I was
You was in
getting
this era.
and I was getting paid hundreds of thousands, maybe. But
Yeah.
at that time, when I'm a broke college student, I need the coaches to put me in the best position to get to the league. So, I may have my own personal,
Yeah.
discretion on how I felt
Right.
about certain play calls and this, but it never was to the point to where, I question coaching. I allow coaches to coach, but obviously going into that game, it's a lot of film studies, a lot of execution that needs to be made. Obviously, some of the, being like vanilla is obviously going to affect you. I always felt like we had our biggest success when we were unpredictable. Throw the ball on first down, you know, throw the ball on third and inches, or play action, or just being able to throw certain defenses off like that because they have such a great personnel that can cater to the pass, that can cater to run, that can fit certain run fits, versus us going against Oregon and being able to run the I formation and get 5 yards per carry.
Right.
You're not
Right.
gonna necessarily get that with a team like Alabama. So
Right.
you kind of had to be, pretty, take chances, but not be predictable.
Give them looks that they never seen.
Not just
Absolutely.
that, but to like the way the game is played now. Like I think in your era when you was coming in, I think that was like some of the beginning stages of this RPO kind of offense when you start seeing young quarterbacks start to run do the run option pass. Now it's offense now. It's been advanced. It's kind of been evolved. We even see it in the pro game now. But I think your era was still this what especially with Les Miles. He was obviously came from Michigan, but still very I formation, read option really was in the beginning stages. And I think that if you was a quarterback coming out of high school now at Destrehan and had to play in today's era of college football, championship, high school, Heisman Trophy candidate, right? Where you play the game,
Right.
But in your era, it's like you saw glimpses of it, and you would think maybe since the Texas with Vince Young, like when you start seeing some of it, like okay, maybe in your era you start seeing it a little bit more, but it didn't really happen that way. But I just think that took away from what y'all could do, being unpredictable a little bit versus you using a little more RPO, which you can see now. This thing, Les Miles was just not in tune with that. He was still caught up in how football was being used to be played versus how the game was starting to evolve.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think if LSU would have been more caught up in those times, I do think that year where I think y'all beat Bama that 6-9 game, but I think y'all lost
In the national championship.
the national championship game, and I think
that's the game where y'all couldn't get past the 50.
Y'all can,
Yeah.
I think that if that would have been used more often in that game, I think that y'all could have probably won that game, and I think that particular team will be talked about because the amount of top 5 teams y'all beat that season.
Yeah.
I think that it's not talked about being a great season for LSU because they lost the national championship. But then y'all started off being what? Y'all played with Oregon, I think originally that year. Y'all had
with Michael James.
And y'all blew them out. And I think that y'all played 4 or 5 top 5 teams, and everybody was like, and to be honest with you, that year, just like, I think if y'all win the national championship, I think that season, obviously the 2019 team, but that team there will also be in conversations of, is that one of the best college football teams that we've seen because of the amount of the teams y'all had to beat.
And the talent they had on us.
That secondary, you talking about the whole second, like Claiborne, Tyron, Brooks.
That's what I mean.
Pat.
Like, that team would be in the conversations of being one of the best college football teams that we've seen this century.
And to say y'all started off at rank 14.
Yeah.
Right.
To me,
Hey, man, that's my team, babe.
Yeah,
Live by, die by.
They base a lot of those rankings off of guys coming back, guys that's leaving. I guess with us losing the guys that we did, which a lot of those guys did get drafted high. They didn't necessarily have faith in the guys that we had, but you still had guys like Michael
Like a
Brockers
Sam
that
Montgomery.
didn't necessarily start that season as a first round grade, but he
Mhm.
ended and
as
got drafted as a first rounder. So
potential
that was
pick to the
people.
Rams.
So that was people that they didn't necessarily consider at that time
Yeah.
that was going to perform at that level. That team definitely was in the race of being, classified one of the best. I mean, us playing Alabama for the second time is obviously the statistics of winning gets even lower
Right.
when you have to win the first time because now in that case we gave them a month to prepare.
Yeah,
Right.
it's a
They
month and
didn't
a
have
half
to
actually.
play for the SEC championship. They didn't have to participate in the bowl game, which the championship is the last bowl game.
Right.
Right.
So we gave them 4 weeks to prepare, which that's tough.
Yeah.
You're going against Nick Saban and a month of preparation
Yeah.
to get in position, and they're so powerful of a school. LSU so powerful of a school to where you'll get a certain call and know when you'll have an opportunity to go. So I'm quite sure they knew they were going to
Right.
be
Right.
in
Right.
the race when you sitting there looking at the last game. If they lose, this happened. If this lose, that happened. And I'm quite sure as soon as that clock hit 0-0, they just knew we in the national championship. So it's obviously a challenge, going up against that. But
And that game was in the Superdome.
In the Superdome.
in a Superdome, definitely had high standards, high expectations.
Oh.
But in reality, I mean, that's just how sports are, man. Sometimes things just not clicking for you. And in that case, being out coached definitely was there. We got out schemed on a lot of things. In order for you to win a football game, you have to win on at least two phases. Well, we
Right.
lost on offense, and we did pretty good on defense, holding them to 21. I feel
Right.
like
Right.
that's pretty solid.
Right.
And they ended up getting a late touchdown in the fourth quarter by
TJ.
Or Derrick Henry. It was like a long run.
no, it was what's it the running back Trent Richardson. Trent Richardson scored a late touchdown.
One of them was
That made it 21-0, but defense holding them to 14. I mean, you can't really ask for
Can't
too
really ask
much. Offense has to put up some points, and for us, they had us. I mean,
I-
they had a good scheme.
I do want to touch on this before we get ready to wrap up the podcast. Man, when you look at the landscape of, kids that are highly touted coming out of high school or even highly touted coming out of college that don't actually pan out, right? I think a big part of that is because of the type of people they have around them. And we don't have enough of us advising these kids and mentoring these kids. You and Robbie Green, who was an excellent sports performance trainer down here in New Orleans, do a great job of that, bro, with the Hot Boys 7-on-7. I saw you at the LSU camp yesterday, man, just mentoring different kids, giving them advice, giving them different nuggets, man. And I think that gets lost in this process. And even with your brother. Talk about how important that is to you, bro, to pour into these to our kind and make sure they don't underachieve, not only as a football player but as a person.
I mean, it's very important. I had that in my corner coming from my father, and I looked at my friends that didn't have those figures in their life, and they would have appreciated or needed those figures to give them that form of information, love, care, or knowledge. So for myself, just I guess being grateful for how things happen for me and the people that I've met in my journey. I know the information that I can share can at least help somebody. So I wish in a lot of cases I would have had that from former players. Mind you, I'm going through situations that I'm experiencing for the first time. Being a black quarterback at LSU, that's different. Going through the process of trying to get to the NFL, that's a lot of different information that we don't necessarily know or understand until we go through our process. So even though my father was very prevalent, it was still information outside of what he can provide
Right.
that I still needed to understand or know for me to thrive in the space that I'm in. So the only people that know a lot of that information are former players. So whenever I had my opportunity to be able to share that game and knowledge to a young man, I took every opportunity it was to get it. And I wanted to take the approach of doing it from a head coaching standpoint, similar to what Deion Sanders was doing.
Mhm.
By obviously going through that form of a journey and doing it that way, they'll make it challenging for him definitely gonna make it challenging for me. So I just didn't necessarily want to keep the information that I had. I wanted to share it. I wanted to give it away for free. I wanted to give it to the person that's gonna value it and be able to take it to the next level.
Right.
I had, my younger brothers, which looking out for family is definitely marquee, and being able to bring them in locker rooms, bring them to camps, let them see the experience through my lens is my experience of saying, okay, if I give, this person this particular information, they can only take it and run with it and be successful at some point in time. So I kind of had the experiences of me being younger, having certain figures that was able to provide that experience, but also having an absence and a gap of former players to come back and tell me and show me how it was.
Mhm.
Give me that game. I'm a black quarterback going to a D1 university
Right.
in the South.
In the
That's a lot of information. I need to know how to manage, how to do certain interviews, how to
business.
conduct this, how to conduct that.
Right.
Really play that political role that you have to learn how to play going to that level. So for myself, I just didn't want any athlete that comes from my umbrella to feel like I stood in front of them and sold them short. They had former athletes that sold me short. They didn't give me
Right.
the certain knowledge or information that I needed to thrive. They may have gave me some knowledge about things that I didn't necessarily need to value at
Right.
that time. So for me, I'm just giving them valuable organic information, not to only help them, but to help their families, because there's experience that my family went through with myself and my brothers that we all had to learn on our own.
Right. On
We
the
didn't
fly.
have anybody telling us how to do this or telling us how to do that. So it took for us to be open minded and learn how things are supposed to go, moving, transitioning from the high school. When you're talking about clearinghouse and ACT and
Yep.
Yep.
GPA and enrolling in the school, and then when you're talking about college, being able to learn some type of financial literacy, the way you when you do receive money, you know what to do with it, and then when you actually get out of the game of football, being able to transition and have a normal career. I had no figure to stand in front of me other than what I saw on TV.
Right. Which is all flash.
It's all flash, so I had to go through those processes on my own and learn. And due to what I went through, I just would hope that the information that I showed the next man could help them learn from what's good, what's right, and what's bad, but also give them information to help them to where when certain situations come, they're gonna say, Coach told me about this. I
Right.
know how to manage this space. I know how to thrive in this area. Because the last thing that we want is our kids to leave from our confinement, be able to go to these certain areas and not be able to thrive in those spaces, which, if you really think about it, from a lot of the athletes from Louisiana, the good ones, how many of them really go to other universities and thrive?
Right.
I can name a lot of
A
them
lot
from
of them
my
that didn't
era,
make it, bro.
a lot of it from my brother era,
A lot
and
of them didn't make
Justin
it.
area. That's 12 years just worth of athletes that were 5-star, 4-star,
stars.
went to this high school, went to that high school, went off and did this and had success, but they weren't really successful in all naturality. And when, the game slowed down or things got tough for those guys, what were they able to do to reinvent the wheel?
Right.
You got to be able to do that. You have to be able to have that information. So me, I just really the person that went through every form of that journey. And by me able to share the information with my brother, he can survive in
Right.
every form of whatever he's experienced. Why? Because I sat down and had conversations with Patrick Peterson, my roommate in college. Ask questions. Hey man, what do you think about this? What about this? Man, what about this? What happens when this happens? Pull Tyron Matthew or any of these guys that I played with, and we sitting down and having real conversations. These guys are married, they have families, some
Yep.
of them still playing, some of them getting into investments, some of them just venture off and do other things with their time and their space that created conversations for us not to just talk about football. So at some point in time, my conversations were changing. I was getting myself involved with people that had thrive or tenacity about themselves to continue to go. I also have a lot of friends that see themselves as failures. because they didn't make it to the NFL.
Yep.
You know, at some point in time, I had to look at myself in the mirror and accept that failure because it was years that I wanted to be there. And when I didn't make it, I had to just swallow that pill and reinvent the wheel. So I was able to, go through the journey of having success, but also experiencing failures to the point to where I changed my perspective about those failures and look at them as a lesson versus a L. And by me having that experience, now I'm able to share lessons to guys that may have at some point in time will experience this failure, but know how to accept it,
Are
know
you
how to deal with it.
are you able to share those lessons with LSU's current quarterback, Jaden Daniels?
Whenever I have opportunities to speak with him on the side, I'll let him know or have those forms of conversation. When he first got to LSU, I obviously embraced him with open
Right.
arms and let him know my status in regards to his life of wanting to see him succeed at every level. And if there's anything that he need or want to have a conversation about football wise or even personal as a man, he can always call my phone.
No doubt.
Why? Because I didn't necessarily have that in my space. It was guys like Imran and guys that'll pull me to the side and have certain conversations, but in regards to a consistent level, some of those guys will just drift off doing their thing. So me, my biggest success is seeing others successful. So by me stepping into my brother's life and him having that success, I know the information that I shared helped him get there. So that's all I really try to do is enter guys life, give them that information from a full service level to really help them really get to a hall of fame level of their life. And then like I tell a lot of guys, you don't necessarily have to you know be a first rounder or make all of these millions of dollars. It's gonna come a point in time where we're gonna sit down and talk about what you're gonna do for the rest of your life at
Right.
30.
Right.
Yep.
And you
Right.
still have 40, 50 years of your life to live, and we have to come up with a plan. Well, now you sitting down and able to critically think with somebody that has been through those certain journeys already. Like it was trying to get at LSU. My experiences at Houston, me transitioning, getting fired from Colorado State, me wanting to become a coach, me being an instructional designer, working in the corporate space. So now we can sit down and say, okay, if this is what you want to do, I know the right people to call. Let's sit down and implement you in those areas. I just had one of my kids, JR Blood, call me about wanting to now get into broadcasting. He's at Southern University. So now we're creating strategies for him
what's
to
up.
network and connect with any department in Southern by me being able to look at my resources or people that I can call in local news in Louisiana or even podcasts like this to where he can join or collect with or collaborate with for him to have opportunities to thrive in that space as a 21-year-old man. So really just being a figure and a source of information and opportunity for people. Obviously, the agent level gives me the notion of giving them financial literacy, helping them thrive in space in the marketing space, polishing up and giving them the proper services that they need to reach a Hall of Fame career, and even in the NIL space, just understanding what marketing is,
Yep.
understanding what branding is, and in the high school space, just really teaching them what the essence of hard work is and how it is to thrive at a Power Five school like LSU, which you're not getting that essence from all high school programs. It was certain things that was missing from me from Destrehan that I needed to learn on my own. So whenever a guy comes from me from a program, yes, that information they're getting is great, but there's another side of it that you would need for guys like myself to share with you because this information is coming out of the locker room.
That's big time, bro. You know, I have a real appreciation for that because I mean, you just talked about it. It's so many kids that I've seen come through high school that, and I'm not just talking about sports related. I'm just talking about in life in general that don't have anybody advising them, anybody to guide them through this thing called life, bro. It's tough. It's really tough. Like trying to figure out how your next 8 to 10 years gonna go out to high school, bro. Like a lot of kids don't know. You ask the average 17, 16-year-old right now, what you want to do with your life after high school? 90% of them can't even give you an answer. You know what I mean? And so having people like you,
They have no idea.
in that space to have that resource, to have that person they can call on and say, man,
No idea.
what can I do to be successful in life? And you can help and guide them. That's powerful. And I think we just need more of us doing that.
And
Absolutely.
I think what speaks more volumes, and I think what's more important is you're not shortchanging them on showing them like, hey, look, I wanted to do this. This didn't go for me, so I went and did this. You're not hiding the what's at the time when you're walking through that problem, that issue. Like it's a dark cloud. Like, man, dang, I ain't get this. I ain't get this spot. I ain't get this position. I ain't do this. This.
Could have shut it down.
You know what I'm saying? You can hide that and just say like, man, look, yeah, played quarterback LSU. I was a college coach. I'm an agent now. You know, I got my brothers doing A, B, and C. You could just show them all the shiny thing, the flashy stuff that we was just talking about. Like, but the essence of how you got to where you are now, you didn't hide. So they can understand, like, hey, look, it might look like a failure to this person from the outside and not going through what I'm going through, but it's a lesson for me.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I got fired from this. Okay, well, this is some things I didn't do right. Now going to the next job, this is boom, 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 boom. All right, look, this didn't fall through for me. Well, it's because of the person that was in charge. Well, you know what? Maybe I need to be in charge. Well, how do I get in charge? These are the steps. Like the thing that you talked about, the Houston thing. That to me, I think that's so monumental to understand. Like, hey, my name could be a blessing and a curse because I can outshine somebody on my own
People
staff.
feel threatened.
So you know what? I'm gonna step away. I'm gonna still get this education, and another path gonna open up. It's more than one path to get to a destination. It's not no just straightforward. Because if you traveling straightforward in life, we'll go straight to heaven soon. We're born.
Absolutely. And you know, my journey has been a marathon. You know, it wasn't scripted. It wasn't written. I didn't necessarily think I was going to be in the spaces that I was in, but I was able to learn something about myself in order what I was able to accept or maintain. Being a former athlete or playing at that level, I have a lot of friends that operate off of ego and pride. And, it was certain things that I did that guys wouldn't do, just to better your life or put yourself in a different situation, or really just in regards to me sharing information with young men I didn't necessarily want to hide. If you see a lot of athletes that don't make it or don't go to the NFL, some of them disappear. You never hear from them.
For real.
They
For real.
going to this confinement, go off the grid because they feel like the world viewed them as a failure. When I go back to Destrehan, I'm not viewed as a failure because I didn't play in the NFL. I'm viewed as a successor based off of what I do after that. What do I do with this? Because I'm still young in my industry, and I also have information that most guys want to know. Most guys will experience at some point in time. So once I got into coaching, once I, started to see the real reality of how life is for former players, I wanted to create and change the narrative to the point to where I can control my own destiny as a former athlete. And most guys can. It just takes for you to put yourself in position to do so.
Having that identity outside of the athlete is so big, bro. Everybody posting their success on social media, and nobody's posting their failures. So that's why we like to have this podcast, bro. Like, we want to entertain, but we also want to inform and educate. And you definitely did that today, man. But before we go, we got to do Jordan's favorites, man. Here we go. Favorite NFL player of all time.
Justin Jefferson.
I knew it. I knew it.
Man.
But if I don't say him, I would say Michael Vick.
Right.
Was my all-time football and Peyton Manning. Basketball, Michael Jordan. Boxing, I would say Mike Tyson. Golf, Tiger Woods. What else you want to do? Baseball. I was a King Griffey.
King Griffey, dog. King Griffey, dog.
Somebody the way he held that stance, man.
It was a King Griffey type.
I'll add one to that. Outside of Griffey, I think mine is Derek Jeter.
Derek Jeter definitely up there. My
huge fan.
The captain.
Yeah. It's the way he played the shortstop position. Is even when A-Rod came down, people like A-Rod gonna play shortcut. So A-Rod played shortstop with the Rangers.
Right.
He ended up moving.
Even in Seattle.
Third.
Boy, you better move to third base.
Yeah.
Derek Jeter's definitely top of my board too.
Jeter and Michael Jordan I think they in collab to own the Marlins.
Yeah, they try.
Yeah. So that's big time.
Derek Jeter's been a Jordan under the Jordan brand for a long
For a
time.
long
man.
time.
It was interesting as I had actually been to like a golf tournament in Las Vegas the week of the Floyd Mayweather Pacquiao fight,
Wow.
and Derek Jeter had his big charity tournament, and it was like sponsored by the Jordan brand. And bro, you'll be amazed. Like those dudes are phenomenal at golf. Phenomenal. Like birdies, pars,
Yeah.
eagles.
And they competitive.
Competitive. Derek Jeter, Jordan,
They be betting some
Mike
serious
Brady,
money too.
Ron Harper. It was a classic going on.
Yeah. Favorite sneaker all time.
I'm a patent 11, Jordan patent 11 type of guy.
Yeah.
The cool grays or the patent leather white and blacks. I think those are
Classics. Gotcha. Favorite movie all time.
Scarface.
Say hello to my little friend.
And if I had to pick like my favorite sports movie, Any Given Sunday.
There we go.
Shut it
There
down.
we go.
Oh,
Yeah, Willie Demon. That was my favorite.
Favorite rapper all time.
Lil Wayne.
That's 2 in a row.
Yeah, man.
Taz said Lil Wayne too.
Yeah,
Please
Louisiana
say the
guy. The whole mixtape era and just growing up on that, it was different. So I'm Lil Wayne.
But
all
you
the way
think
through.
of Wayne though. There's two versions of Wayne. There's Little Wayne. There's this Tucci cat.
Mm-hmm.
I don't do Tucci.
Yeah.
I do Weezy F baby.
Right.
Yeah.
What's up?
Please say the baby.
Yeah. I guess when you go so years of killing a game, you want to try to find a different way to kill it.
I get it.
And him just changing his style and getting into the
golden young
bach
boys. I'm
and
still trying to adapt. Still trying to adopt.
yeah, it's
to it.
definitely new. It's different, but it's just I guess it comes with the era or the time frame or just years of doing this. Because if you think about it, if he was to come out with every album like the Carter or the Carter 2, we probably wouldn't want to listen to it no more because it all sound like the same thing. That's one of the knocks on what people say about NBA YoungBoy.
Right.
All his music sound the same.
Sound the same.
Even though we still listen to it, but they'll just say it sound the same.
Well, you see Drake didn't change
Yeah.
the way he do
He
things now.
changed things
Yeah.
like 3 times now.
Yeah.
You gotta change your sound, and I can understand how somebody like Drake could change his sound, bro. Because honestly, I had just like overseas travel before. Like
Right.
I had went to Madrid, and when you go to Madrid, it's a different life of what it is in Louisiana. The food you eating, the McDonald's tastes different. It's cleaner. It's different form of culture and language. So a guy like Drake that has money and can experience that form of culture,
You had to change your sound up just a little
I
bit.
don't blame him.
You're a well-traveled guy. What's your favorite place to visit?
Favorite place to visit?
That's a good question.
I like Miami because it's
Go roll by.
diverse, a lot of different culture. I like the differences in food mixing with the different cultures. Obviously, you get the beach and the whole South Beach type of campaign. If I didn't say that, I would say. I mean California because it has different parts. Going to LA, obviously they have a lot of opportunity there that we indulge in with the marketing space. But there's also areas like Orange County, San Diego.
San Diego, beautiful.
San Diego, beautiful.
A lot of those areas just have good people that support what you do, that are very enthusiastic about. Because we did a youth football camp in San Diego one time. This was probably like 2 months after the Rams won the championship. Man, every kid out there had Minnesota Viking jerseys right there in California.
That's crazy.
So, just due to the experience, mom and pop shops and food, California too. So
I thought sure you was gonna say somewhere out the country.
I mean, I've been to Madrid, I've been to Paris, London. All of those are great, but I'm waiting until I go to like Senegal. I go to, I'm supposed to go to Brazil at the end of the month. When I
There
go to
you go.
Brazil, and
You ain't gonna.
kind of
America.
experience different, forms of culture. So I can put Paris up there, but Paris doesn't cater to
Said, man, it's the ladies.
a lot of the culture that I'm looking for
Right.
to being catered to. You know what I'm saying? So
Right.
It's
Right.
okay to
I
say
wanna
the
go to-
ladies.
I wanna go to Egypt.
I'm here to say the ladies, man. You can say the ladies. Say it later. Trust me, this is gonna be. You're not gonna get cancel culture on the FanvVew podcast. I know if you say Miami, I said this the ladies. There's something in the water.
Yeah, you got good food, good energy. I got a lot of friends from there too, so I was able to just be embraced with open arms by the city to actually see the glitter and glamour. But I also saw, you know, the family, the for real, the going to grandma's house and getting food off the barbecue. So I was able to going to grandpa's house and he making fried conch fritters, stuff like that. That was real Miami, Haitian food.
Yes.
Eating oxtails and all this. That's not stuff that we necessarily eat in Louisiana. So just getting that culture.
Toughest opposing player you ever went against?
Opposing player. I mean, I would have to, for me, I would probably have to say more like linebacker or something. So, I mean, I could probably put Brandon Spikes up there. Brandon Spikes or Dante Hightower, just due to their tenacity of being a fearless linebacker, being able to be athletic and make plays. It was plenty times to where in football you play chess, right? If I'm making checks at the line, those guys were checked in and shipped in and doing things as well. So I have to say those two.
Last but not least, favorite comedian all time?
Bernie Mac. I was a Bernie Mac guy. Kings of Comedy. Him just, having his natural or being funny. I did like Martin Lawrence. I like Chris Tucker, Steve Harvey.
Bernie though.
I did like those guys. I just felt like Bernie was a little bit more
The longevity too.
charismatic. The way he spoke, and it was a little bit altered. Like he was very animated about his style, and I just enjoyed it. I liked it.
Man, I ain't gonna lie. I was weak when he walked up to the car.
Trouble.
Yeah. He told me how to do. What the hell y'all doing? Thought that dude. He always had a scene in the movie, bro. It was just like he was animated. It was like he was just so like I don't know what it is. Maybe he's like your dad's dad or what. I can't put my finger on it, but he always played these roles where you was like
He was definitely one of a kind.
one of a kind, bro.
No doubt.
And if you ask all of the guys that toured with him, none of them wanted to follow behind Bernie, because it's how we were able to
tough
make
act to come behind.
people laugh and just have that whole form of experience, with comedy like that. And I mean, obviously it was a different era at that time, and the stuff that they said then probably wouldn't get away now. But they were able to test the waters and make it so funny to the point to where it was so relatable, and you just had to laugh. And most great comedians talk about their family. And I feel like he has some historical jokes talking about his family.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
No doubt. Man, Jordan, man, I appreciate you coming on the FanvVew podcast, man. I know your schedule is hella busy. I don't take it for granted, man, when people take the time out of their busy schedule, man, to come and fellowship with us, man, and entertain and inform on this podcast, bro. Hopefully we can get you back on in the near future. Hopefully we get Jets on in the near future, man. And
Absolutely.
and kind of go through his journey as well, man. Keep doing what you're doing, bro. Hopefully we can connect again, man, soon.
Absolutely. I appreciate y'all inviting. Obviously, forms of reciprocity like this is what I like to collaborate and do. In Louisiana, there has to be more forms of collaboration like this in order for us to take things to the next level. So, I have some opportunities for y'all to get involved with as well as I continue to do my due diligence with high school sports. So, I appreciate this. This is definitely a very good conversation to have.
Right.
And a piece of a story that people would like to hear. So
No doubt.
definitely continue to do what y'all doing on spreading the word and connecting with good people.
Yep.
And the rest will be history.
Appreciate you, bro.
We appreciate that, man. Tell Ricky the best Jefferson we said what's up. Cause man, hey, he don't want to play on the dark side, baby. Tell the best one what's up.
Definitely let them know, man. Definitely let them know. The interesting part is, man, a lot of my good friends were defensive players.
There you
Crazy.
go. There you go.
I had to keep the defense around me.
Yeah.
To get the real business done.
The rugged side. Yeah. Man, appreciate y'all for tuning in, man. Make sure y'all subscribe. Share it with a friend on the FanvVew live page. Make sure y'all subscribe and share it to the G-Sportz page, man. This G-Sportz, man, we signing out.
Y'all already know this. That boy Fred. Listen, subscribe if you're on YouTube, FanvVew Podcast. If you're on IG, FanvVew Podcast. If you're on Twitter, it's FanvVew NOLA. Facebook, FanvVew Podcast. TikTok, FanvVew Podcast. Man, we can't stop. We won't stop.
Hey, baby, we at it again.
He never stops. He never stops with the again.
And again.
Step Construction is here for you with a brand new offer. We now provide affordable storage sheds. Stop wasting your money on overpriced storage units and portable containers. Step Construction can provide you with a custom shed that will fit your budget and storage needs. So contact Step Construction today at 504-340-5809 for your own personal quote. Let us help you take the next step at Step Construction.
It's that boy Fred, host of FanvVew Podcast. Tune into the NOTN app, weekdays, 3:30 for the FanvVew Podcast. Go to NewOrleansTalkNetwork.com to watch more episodes of FanvVew Podcast. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and watch.